Think you know the Brooks Ghost? Think again. Introducing the all-new, better-than-ever Ghost 16. Now with nitrogen-infused cushioning for lightweight, supreme softness that feels good every step, every street, every single day. So go ahead, take your daily joyride in the all-new nitrogen-infused Ghost 16. It'll turn your everyday miles into everyday endorphins. Let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
Today on CityCast Houston, summer is heating up and so is hurricane season. And what H-Town neighborhoods do you think are getting new library spaces? We'll get into that. Plus, we'll catch up on the latest about the murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungaray and how her death could change rules in the criminal justice system. I'm here with Hey Houston newsletter editor Brooke Lewis to break it all down. It's Tuesday, July 2nd. I'm Laura Isensee, filling in for host Raheel Ramzanali. And here's what Houston is talking about. Hey, Brooke, welcome back to CityCast Houston. How are you doing?
Doing well, trying to stay cool. It's already so hot.
I know, and brace yourself because we might be hitting triple digits this week. For me, it feels like we already have hit triple digits,
yes.
but technically not. That might change this week. So yeah, what are you doing to celebrate the 4th of July?
Yeah, so I'm going to be hanging out with my parents that day, and we're going to take advantage of Museum of Fine Arts Houston's free Thursdays, and we're going to go just be in air conditioning, look at their new exhibits, and take in some beautiful artwork. And I probably will head to a fireworks show later that evening.
Nice. I love the inside with AC strategy.
Yes. And what are your plans, Laura?
Well, I'm going to do sort of a classic burgers family pool party. We're going to go out to Katy with some cousins, aunts, and uncles, and I'm going to try and make a watermelon salad. So that's going to be my contribution.
I love watermelon during the summer. It's just like something that I instantly crave. So very excited to hear how your watermelon salad turns out.
Yeah, I'll let you know. It's going to be sort of like blueberries, feta, mint, so very fresh, like kind of a twist on watermelon. So also trying to stay cool.
Well, that sounds like a perfect summer day.
Well, let's get into the big stories of the week, and I'm going to kick it off with, this is just such a tragic story about Jocelyn Nungaray, and we've been talking about what happened. This was a 12-year-old girl in North Houston, and she was found dead in a creek 2 weeks ago. Really a horrific murder. I'm not going to go into the details. We've already talked about it on the show before. But what's new here is her family and friends said goodbye at the funeral late last week. And I just think it's really important to remember her as a person and not just her tragic death. They say she was a goofball. She had a big, beautiful smile. She loved Harry Potter and Twilight. She loved animals. And her funeral costs were picked up by Mattress Mac. We all know him, the local philanthropist and owner of Gallery Furniture. And he told various local media that he picked up the funeral costs because he realized that had she lived, she would have gone to the same high school as his own children. So that's kind of the update on the personal side of the story. But there's also kind of this political dimension that's developing. Last week on the presidential debates, we heard former President Donald Trump bring it up, calling it a migrant killing. 2 men who are originally from Venezuela, and immigration officials have confirmed they were in the country illegally. They've been arrested and charged with capital murder. They're being held in the Harris County Jail on a $10 million bond. And now Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is saying he wants to pass a new law in the next legislative session and call it Jocelyn's Law, and make sure that no one else in Texas who gets charged with a capital murder can be released on bond, because these two individuals have a $10 million bond each. So that's kind of all the updates, but it is just on the personal side, it's just this horrific story. And then we are seeing these ripple effects in the national politics and the state politics. So that's kind of all the official updates. But what do you make of all of this, Brooke? How close have you been following the story?
Yeah, I've been following it pretty closely, and I just think it's something that's so sad. And just hearing hearing the details about her loving Harry Potter, Twilight reminds me of when I was a teen, the things that I used to love. And just when you hear about a life like cut so short in such a tragic way, it always makes you just, cherish the moments that you have more. But also, I think this is a conversation that's just going to continue on because of the political debate that's ongoing. So I think it's something that's going to be really hard for the family to continue to live out, which will be difficult, especially in the public eye. And I also think it'll be something that continues to be used in the debate about immigration and what that looks like going forward. So it's just a rough story all around, and I hate that this is the national attention Houston's getting. So
Yeah. There's a lot of other things happening in Houston, and I do agree with you. We're going to keep hearing about this, especially with getting closer to the presidential election and state politics and immigration being such a hot button issue. I do think it's really important to point out in all of this that there was a fact check done kind of related to this story that, when we look at immigrants and migrants, some of them do have criminal records, but PolitiFact did a check, and, there's no evidence that the vast majority of migrants have criminal records or violent history, and certainly not millions like some political candidates and pundits are saying and related to this. So, I think it's important to just sort of keep all of the facts in mind, that, and not paint immigrants and migrants with a broad brush just because of, this isolated a case, which is still going through the criminal justice system. So we will be following this as it continues. But what's your big story of the week, Brooke? What do you want to share?
yeah, so on my end, I think this is good news for people who are book lovers and looking for more just accessibility when it comes to books. So two previously halted library projects are moving forward. And it's kind of been a ping pong back and forth. And I think it's welcome news, though, to hear that the city does plan to move forward and open a new library space in Montrose, which brings the total of libraries to 2 in Montrose, which is exciting because I live there. But I think something that people may not know about is that in Acres Homes, there is a new library coming there that's 20,000 square feet and is going to bring significant resources to that community that is historically African American. They do have a library currently there, but this library will be an updated, more modern library that the community can use. And last month, they actually were pausing construction because of budget concerns. And the community was in uproar after hearing about that. But now it looks like they're moving forward. What I'm excited about with the Montrose Library is I really miss half-price books. I don't know if you went to that, Laura.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Former customer, and every so often took some books there to sell too.
Yeah, and so I miss half-price books. And at the Montrose Library, they're thinking about having a section that's similar where they'll be able to sell older books. They also will have a coffee shop and a green room and author talks. So
Oh,
I think,
wow.
yeah, I think it's exciting. I do think the conversation should still continue as to how we can have more of these spaces in communities that may not have these resources. Because I think in Montrose, we are just lucky to have already a library here, and then also access to bookstores and just so many, like a plethora of resources for people who love books. And growing up, one of my favorite things was going to the library. So I just think making sure that all children in Houston have that access is something that's really important.
For sure. I'm so glad you're sharing this because I didn't know about that news about the library in Acres Home, that there were plans to build it and then it was on pause because of the budget situation. And that is great news that it's coming back online and it's going to be finished in the near future. And yeah, and double good news with Montrose getting not one, but two libraries. And I think it's, kind of what you said, like community space. I feel like, especially in our post-pandemic lives, finding those community spaces to come together, to be curious, whether it's reading a book or going to an author talk or just having like a community meeting space. I feel like we need this more and more. And I'm like you, I grew up going to the library after school over the summer. That's what we did, pool and library.
Yes.
So I love this that more folks in Houston will get access. But big shout out to Maggie Gordon at the Houston Landing for covering this library beat because it's been busy. She's been covering all of these ins and outs and updates and political snafus and budget concerns with the Houston library system. She is showing us that there is a lot going on, and I'm so glad she's covering it.
Yes, I got to work with Maggie for a few years, and she's a dear friend.
Hi, I'm David Plotz, CEO of CityCast, or, as I can say now, thanks to a few weeks with Babbel, hola, soy David Plotz, el jefe de CityCast. What if in 2024 you got a little bit better every day? When you're learning a new language with Babbel, that's exactly what you're doing. And if Babbel can help me start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks, imagine what you could do in a full year. I got started with Babbel because I realized that my girlfriend, who's a native Spanish speaker, and my son, who's in AP Spanish, were conspiring against me, or thought they were conspiring against me in Spanish. I wanted to know what they were talking about. And now, thanks to literally just a few weeks of Babbel, I'm starting to be able to eavesdrop. It is rare that something so fun and simple, and Babbel is super fun and very simple, is also so useful. So here's a special limited time deal for CityCast listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for CityCast listeners at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Let's move on to a lightning round. I'll kick it off. There's a hurricane in the Atlantic, Hurricane Beryl, and there's no indication that is going to be coming to Texas. It's currently forecast to go through the Caribbean and the Windward Islands. But the reason why I wanted to share this and why, because I think it's a big story for Houston, is that this Hurricane Beryl, has already broken records. So it has formed really far east, farther east than any other storm. It's also the earliest we've seen a Category 4 storm on record. So it's the strongest storm on record this early in the season. So it's kind of a warning to everyone. We're in hurricane season. It's forecast to be really intense, and we're seeing bigger storms earlier than ever. So kind of like a mixed, kind of dodging a bullet, but be prepared. If you don't have that hurricane kit ready, go to the grocery store, get your supplies, buckle up. It's going to be a long season.
Yeah, I kind of just want to pretend like it's not happening. But as it gets hotter and hotter and we just head deeper into summer, it just feels like kind of that looming feeling like, oh my gosh, any moment we could just get the bad news. So
yeah,
definitely get ready.
Yeah, be prepared. What about you, Brooke? What do you have for our lightning round?
Yeah. So, Houston jazz and blues singer Jewel Brown died last week from colon cancer and other health complications. She was a really well-known and beloved singer out of Third Ward that started singing blues at just 9 years old, and she won a lot of local talent shows, including at Third Ward's historic El Dorado Ballroom. And Jewel Brown also eventually traveled the world and sang with legends like Louis Armstrong. I thought it was really cool. I learned this as I heard about her death. I didn't know this before, but in the 1960s, she became the lead vocalist with Louis Armstrong for 8 years, and she beat out 500 other vocalists for the role, which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she returned to Houston to care for her ailing parents in Third Ward and purchased their home from them and then lived in it until she died last week. So definitely a legend here, and we will miss her very much.
Yeah, what a legend. I have to admit, I didn't know about her and her singing, and now I want to go listen to some Jewel Brown.
Yes.
Well, I have one more item for this lightning round, and that is that the Texas Supreme Court has upheld a ban on transgender care for minors here in the state. This is coming from a law that was passed last year. State lawmakers have barred transgender teenagers from accessing puberty blockers and hormone therapy. Of course, LGBTQ advocates and parents of trans children have been fighting this, and that's why they filed this lawsuit challenging the constitutionality. But the Texas Supreme Court, which has a majority of Republican judges, decided that, quote unquote, fit parents have a right to raise their children without government interference. But they also said that right is not absolute. So for now, that ban is standing.
Yeah, and Texas is not just the only state that this is happening. We're seeing this across the country in other states that are led by Republican legislatures. So I think this issue will just be ongoing, and I think an ongoing debate between the Republican-led legislatures and then LGBTQ plus advocacy groups, their families, and parents of trans children. I think it's a really complicated issue. And there are just so many, there are people who are parents of trans children that are thinking of just the best route for their kids. And I think that it's a complicated thing when the government comes in and tells you what to do. So it's an issue that will unravel, and I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I wonder, I've seen stories here and there of parents of trans teens and trans kids in Texas making the decision to leave the state precisely because of this type of law. And I wonder now if with this latest ruling, are we going to see more families making that decision? But we'll definitely be following it. Brooke, do you have one more item for our lightning round?
Yeah, so some good news here in Houston. Simone Biles just qualified for her third Olympics. Woo! So exciting.
Woo, woo, woo.
Really loved to watch her. She qualified on Sunday. It was so much fun to watch her and the others part of the U.S. Olympic team for gymnastics. And I just think it's going to be so much fun to watch the other competitors too, but just love Simone and just love to see her come back after the Tokyo Olympics where she took that mental health break. Really respected that. And I think, just put the conversation in the air about what it means to be an athlete, a high-performing athlete, and what it looks like to take a break and to take care of yourself. And it seems like she's coming back better than ever, stronger than ever. So really, really excited to watch her compete this summer.
Yes, I'm really excited to watch Simone. I'm not the biggest sports person, but I do want to watch Simone this summer at the Olympics in Paris. Of course, not in Paris, just watching from a distance.
I wish you were in Paris.
Yeah, so we will be covering that too. Brooke, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of CityCast Houston. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, have a great week, and I hope you stay cool.
That was Hey Houston newsletter editor Brooke Lewis. You can find a link to subscribe to the newsletter in our show notes, plus links to the stories we talked about so you can dive deeper. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and rate the show. It would really help us out. And don't forget to share it. That's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something new. My big story is blah, blah, blah.